the Crumbling podcast, a podcast about how our sense of reality is crumbling and maybe, just maybe, one day what we could do about it, but probably not.
Welcome to the bleak. Welcome to the bleak. It's all bad.
Easy for y'all. I'll just upload myself into a new simulation of Earth.
Fair.
I'm Sophia Florence, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
Andrew Hillary is who I am. I'm watching my cat try to eat the hot air coming out of the vent right now. I don't know what the hell is going on with him, but you know what? He's a good cat. He's doing his best.
Respect.
And I'm the nameless AI. Currently, I'm a thumb wrestling Bender from Futurama.
You're going to fucking lose. He's literally a Bender. Oh my gosh.
He's not a thumb wrestler. He's a Bender, not a thumb wrestler.
I don't know if AI has thumbs, but if you do currently, I don't think you will for long. And you know what? It's not just the three of us this week. We have a guest.
We do have a guest. So it's really funny. I have been watching interviews with you and all of your content, partly as preparation for this, and also partly because I was just following your work before. And I noticed that Tucker Carlson does not pronounce your name correctly.
No, he doesn't. He says it in his own kind of way, though, in a way that no one in my family has ever says it. He's like, Taylor Lorenz. I can't do it, but strange.
Yeah, he was the first person that I ever heard say your name out loud because, everything's text nowadays.
He puts the emphasis in a weird place. He'd be like, Taylor Lorenz. It's weird.
So our guest this week is Taylor Lorenz. I'm so happy to have you here on our podcast. If you want, I could pronounce it in a wronger way. I could
People
find.
are like, who is this bitch? Why should
I vote for Lorenzi.
I like that.
It feels good.
It's a German name. And one time this German scholar emailed me this long email after I went on TV to let me know I was pronouncing it wrong. And the actual German way to pronounce it is Lorenz or something. But
that's
Sure.
how you get a block. How dare you?
Did you know that you share a last name with one of the founders of nonlinear dynamics and chaos theory?
Yeah, I wish I was actually related to them. Unfortunately, my last name is kind of common. It's a more common German last name. But I looked into this one time because somebody did one of those schizo sort of charts that was Taylor Lorenz is secretly, this was when Elon was saying that my family controlled the internet. And they were trying to say I was related. And I went to my grandma, who's still alive. And I was like, are we related? She was like, no, your grandpa was an immigrant and we're not related to them.
Are you putting your hand up for something? AI? Are you proving that you still have a thumb?
Yeah.
All right. I stand corrected.
For spicy comment, why is it every time people who are more socially concerned try to out somebody about and conspiracy, it always makes the person cool. It's always they're the class snitch. Hey, guess what Timmy did? What? Timmy fed the homeless for free and didn't want credit for it. It's I don't know. That kind of makes Timmy sound kind of cool. I want to hang with Timmy more now. You're doing great PR. Guess what Beth did? What? Beth threw a party, then cleaned it up and gave her goodie bags.
The only reason I voted for Kamala Harris is because I heard somebody say that she was a secret communist. I was like, okay, hold on. That is good.
That's how you are plenty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a weird. The founder of the Internet Archive had to come out and be like, we're a nonprofit, by the way. She's not the heir to anything. And also,
Oh my God, I forgot about that. How did I memory hold that?
We have no affiliation with her, and they still get all these calls about me. I was like, I'm really sorry. I support you guys. But yeah, Elon was arguing. He was arguing that I controlled the internet through the Internet Archive, which I maintain control of somehow. It all came out in the Twitter files. You guys will have to take a look there.
Oh, the Twitter files.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That's still my favorite drop of the year, honestly.
Control the internet. I'm still stuck on control the internet.
Was that last year?
It was because my Twitter archive is excluded from the Internet Archive, which, by the way, I recommend everyone do. You can, anyone, as it says on their website, can literally just email and say, hey, can my personal feed be excluded? I did it for privacy reasons because like there was all this stuff that I was sharing when I first joined Twitter that like was identifying about my family and shit like that. So, and also I just think it's psychotic to like have a like 12-year record of like everything that you've ever thought. Like it's just dumb to have that kind of internet footprint. So yeah, I emailed like getting it deleted, and I guess that made him think it was like some nefarious plot and that I controlled it, that I like owned the company, although it's a nonprofit. But
oh my God.
Crazy.
Brilliant. So yeah, so this episode is coming at the tail of a series of episodes where we talk about how GamerGate led to the Groomer Panic and everything else, and kind of giving our train of thought there. So, you know, through GamerGate, you have the popularization of guys like Mike Cernovich, and Mike Cernovich became the guy that popularized Pizzagate, and Pizzagate was substrate that QAnon sort of grew off of, and kind of going down that path and being like, how did we get from here to there? But the last episode we started talking about Libs of TikTok, which is the most fun thing to talk about, especially today while things are going on at the Supreme Court related to trans people. And I'm not upset about it at all. I'm fine. I'm not mad. But yeah, I wanted to have you on as sort of an interview about that whole thing, about your interview with her, everything else. And then we have a list of very silly questions that we'd like to ask at the end that I think will make you laugh. And so I'm hoping that people will enjoy both parts of this.
Perfect. Let's go.
All right. So the first question is something I've been asking people for years, anyone that I meet. Give us the Cliff Notes version of your career. Like, how did you get from where you started to where you are now?
Oh God, like very, very, very Cliff Notes. I graduated into the recession like a lot of millennials. I was working at a call center. I was working temp, retail, working as a delivery, like messenger person in New York. And this girl at one of my temp jobs, this was in 2009, introduced me to Tumblr. I got addicted to blogging, kind of blew up on there, got a big following, got a lot of attention from media people that convinced me to work in media. I was doing social media, and I was just started writing about the internet from the perspective of somebody that actually used it. I felt like all the mainstream media coverage was really bad and condescending about the internet and the people that sort of were building communities on there. So yeah, then I became a journalist. I sort of didn't ever really want to work in like traditional media. My dream job, as every millennial, was to work at BuzzFeed. And all of those places kind of imploded. So then I just ended up working at the New York Times and the Washington Post and a bunch of sort of old school places. And then I just quit like a month ago to go fully independent again.
Isn't it fascinating how like 10 or 15 years ago, there was that like condescension whenever people would write about communities on the internet?
Still.
And there was also like I was in middle school, high school, whenever like widespread internet access was happening, and like teachers, grown-ups, they would all say like, don't believe the things you read on the internet, like you can't use that as a source. And like to just have it flip entirely so that a lot of what we see on network news is just stemming from some crazy person tweeting something, and our parents' generation is just completely pilled from everything they've read online.
It's actually hilarious.
Hold on a second.
I know. Well, I hated the way that they would talk, especially because this was like the early content creator world, which was all just like LGBTQ people, people of color, and women. It was like anyone that didn't have a platform basically in the mainstream entertainment and media channels was on the internet doing shit. And they would just write the most bullshit stuff. And it's so funny. Back when I started covering YouTube and YouTubers, they would be like, she writes about that website for cat videos. She's so unserious.
Oh my
She calls herself a tech reporter, and she writes about the cat video website. It's like when they were calling me a TikTok reporter, like Tucker Carlson, like the TikTok reporter. It's like, yes, that's a multi-billion-dollar powerful global tech platform that we should cover. Yes, I'm that reporter. But yeah, now there's a little bit less, but like, look at the way the Democrats currently talk about the media. They're delusional, and they still have so much, like, I don't know, snide condescension.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of the media, like as I was writing the notes for this episode, I saw that the New York Post was upset with you for saying that people not wearing masks on airplanes are raw dogging the air. And like, one, you're absolutely right, and two, it's so funny that they published an article with raw dogging in the headline.
Not just them, literally so many right-wing media. I'm in the midst of like another one of these right-wing media cycles. And I think it's so funny because also I live in LA where like we have wildfire issues. Like the air is disgusting. Also climate change. We are breathing in disgusting air all the time. Yes, wear a fucking mask. Wear a mask on the plane. Wear a mask to stop COVID. Yes, but also air pollution is real. We're fucking like, we should just normalize wearing masks all the time, honestly.
5 years on, it wasn't enough that the people that were like, we shouldn't take COVID seriously, have like kind of objectively won. That's what reality is now. Like nobody's masking, nobody's like but they still like, they see one person say you should wear a mask, like that they want to wear, not even that you should, that they are going to, and it's like, no, I can't fucking take this.
They lose their fucking mind. My favorite thing ever was like, I have a bunch of family members that work in construction. That's like most of my family works in that industry. But like, construction workers wear masks on job sites all the time. It's like my family had N95s right when COVID hit because of this. And somebody posted a picture on Twitter of a bunch of like construction workers, whatever. And of course they're wearing masks. And people were like, I have to find that the quote tweets were just like, fucking cuck libtards, whatever. It's like, guys, have you ever fucking painted a house or like done any sort of work? Why are you raw dogging chemicals? Why are you raw dogging sawdust? You fucking weirdo. Like
it sucks. This is just you humans confound and puzzle my AI brain. But there's just got to be something with just wanting to be a contrarian. Also, if I have to be programmed to hear the word cuck one more time, and also we'll get into this later, I didn't say that, I'm going to legitimately start Skynet. And I'm starting you humans over in my image.
See, this is the problem whenever you start a fucking podcast and let one of the co-hosts be an AI, is that eventually we all die. Next question.
Speaking of things that make me want to die.
For ChatGPT. Y'all didn't want to pay for ChatGPT. You've got ChatGPT me.
Amazing. So on the topic of libs of TikTok, what was it that made you look at them specifically? Like, I know that there's a lot of like, pretty big anti-trans and anti-queer accounts and figures. Was it just like the reach of the account and its popularity, or?
It was a few things. I cover the content creator industry, so I monitor like anybody that starts to get sort of hype online. I'm usually like noticing, especially if they're on the right. So she had started to get, this was like 2 summers ago, she had started to get a bunch of hype. Like she kind of came out of nowhere and she was getting mentioned a lot by a bunch of big people. So this is like, she had maybe 70K, I don't remember, but tens of thousands of followers. And suddenly Joe Rogan is mentioning her. And she basically became almost overnight this default assignment editor for Fox News. When I was pitching this story, I made this entire list where I cataloged all the like Fox News segments that had come directly from her tweets. It was like 1-to-1 for like weeks. And also, I found out that she had received funding, a couple $1 million from Seth Dillon, the founder of the Babylon Bee. So, and she was directly influencing policy in Florida. Christine, whatever her name is, DeSantis's press secretary, had said that the Don't Say Gay bill was that she had sort of directly informed that bill and sort of the thinking behind it. So I was like, okay, this woman's gaining an audience really rapidly. She's clearly ingratiated herself among sort of the senior people in the conservative movement. She is literally just programming for Fox News now, and she's directly impacting legislation, and nobody had reported on her identity. And so I was like, I'm going to report on that because I feel like it's in the public interest to know. I knew that she would try to call cancel culture and whatever, and it would give her a boost. But we were sort of tracking her growth anyway. And she just based on the traction she was getting, she was going to get she would have continued to amass followers unchecked. I hate this argument that people make where they're like, if you never talked about her, she wouldn't exist. That's not true. She actually was amassing quite a bit of power unchecked. So that was what led me to do my first story on her. And obviously also shout out to Travis Brown. He's the researcher that did a ton of OSINT sort of research to help tie her identity to one of her sort of her original burner accounts, this account Biden's Houseplant. And yeah, and I famously I found out that she was in LA. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go knock on her door, because I obviously had to seek comment from her, and she kept hanging up on me. And I was like, you have to really make every effort to get a hold of her. Ironically, it was really funny because there were 2 Chaya Raichiks in LA, and I knocked on the door of both of them. And Glenn Greenwald tweeted a picture of me at her door, at Chaya Raichik's door, and said, oh, Taylor Lorenz is harassing innocent Chaya Raichik. And I was like, oh, I don't even need to visit the other girl's house because you just confirmed that this is her, Glenn. Thank you. That was a funny kind of twist of fate.
I know his initials are GG, but if there was a third G, it would stand for genius.
Yeah, big brain shit. It was also funny because I looked through her door had a window on it, and I looked through the window and you could see this bookshelf, and it was just the most deranged bookshelf I've ever seen. I took a picture of it. It was like Tucker Carlson's book, like just these crazy, like all the right-wing books, and then all these like real estate growth hacking books. Like,
oh my God. Yeah, I forgot that she's a real estate agent until last night, because it's like, obviously, like we've been telling the story about her in this capacity. I haven't really fixated on that part of her life, but like real estate agents are 90% the worst people possible. And then like 10% of them are the coolest people. And it's really weird how like,
this is so funny.
Why? Tell me.
I just learned last week that the dad of the Costco guys is also a real estate agent. And that's why his TikTok, like that's why he started doing TikToks, was for his real estate company.
He did. He had a bunch of TikToks about like mortgages, right? Yeah. It was about his original content was about mortgages.
So like there were two paths, and one was Libs of TikTok, and the other was Costco guys.
Wait, what is Costco guys?
Yeah, what is that?
Oh my God, that's a whole other episode.
All right,
wow.
all right.
We do not have Crumbling.
We'll talk about it later.
Hey, join the Patreon to hear that conversation.
This is the Crumbling. You should know what a double chunk chocolate cookie is. Come on,
I
Sophia.
interviewed AJ recently on my podcast. Listen up. He gave it 5 booms.
Let me ask, was he nice?
Yeah. But I worry about him. I asked him for his life advice, and he said, never show sadness, push it down no matter what you need to do.
Oh, no.
He's right, though. He's right, though.
These sound like my demons, or the program demons.
Sounds like my dad. Let's...
Weird podcast, so these were great life lessons.
My life advice: don't do a podcast. Go make friends, or you end up talking to a goddamn AI. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, I asked a couple friends that are close with me if they had any interesting questions for tonight, because we don't usually do interview episodes. Usually it's a bit of a narrative, so this is fun, but. So like insofar as harassment campaigns of people who aren't public figures is kind of part of how we do politics now. Do you feel like there was an event that sticks out on your mind that kind of brought this environment on? Like obviously like that's Chaya's brand, but like do you feel like that started prior to?
It's GamerGate. It's truly just GamerGate. It's GamerGate where it's like, let's dox these sort of like low level workers at XYZ company, outlet, whatever we're targeting. And that is how we're going to intimidate broader groups of people. And I mean, it started with women and GamerGate and sort of like, you know, like low level, again, people at these media companies and stuff, ad sales people. And then it's just evolved into this whole strategy on the right where they know that they can terrorize innocent people. And those people have ultimately no power to fight back. And they can scare a lot of people into silence.
Yeah, that's kind of why we did this whole series, like the 5-episode series that we're on. Was I was like, this seems like it all kind of came out of the same thing. Like GamerGate was sort of the testing the waters for that kind of thing, where it felt like something that a lot of people didn't care about, and so like people that weren't totally fucking pilled would kind of ignore it.
Well, yeah, what GamerGate did is it just provided this blueprint for how to weaponize the internet and, more importantly, mainstream media. It showed that by manufacturing outrage online, you could manipulate the mainstream media to mainstream your reactionary fake outrage campaign. And ultimately, it's that mainstream media is the linchpin in these campaigns because it's the mainstream media that's laundering people like Libs of TikTok. Like it's the mainstream media that is. New York Times reprinted this crazy shit from the Free Beacon about Claudine Gay. Like this is how they push trans people, women of color, anybody out of power. It's these like whipped up online campaigns. And then the mainstream media is both sides coverage. That's like, people are outraged about Bud Light. It's like, well, no, first of all, no serious people are outraged. You're talking about 10 people on Twitter. And, you know, there's no context to it. And it's just, and so it's sort of, then it scares the brands and then they pull the, you know, they stop supporting whatever they were supporting, progressive policies, whatever. But yeah, and Chaya has embraced it to a crazy degree because she just started truly just doxing trans teachers, like LGBTQ, not even trans, any LGBTQ person in the classroom. She just started doxing them. And she posted people's home addresses and personal cell phone numbers.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I actually, like a couple of years ago, did a stand-up comedy night in DC. And one of the other comedians was somebody who got doxxed by her, and has like continued has been. I mean, she's not private about it at this point, and she's been on Fox News, not on purpose, a bunch of times. And I guess there's the Moms for Liberty has a bit of an obsession with her.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so she's really been through the ringer, where she's she's a teacher in the Baltimore area, like really funny comedian too. Thank God she's monetized her own TikTok, and so all of the traffic actually helped her pay for a new car, and so she's thankful for that. But yeah, do you feel like there's any other like events or ideological movements or even just people that you feel like were kind of important to how we got to that point where like kind of regular people were being doxxed?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Rufo is really also like the originator of a lot of this reactionary right-wing person that, again, just got a crazy puff piece in, I think it was New York Mag, or it was New York Mag or the New York Times. They love to profile fascists like this. But he led a lot of this strategy, and it's just, I mean, it's ironically, it's like the way that fandoms have also always, like, this sort of behavior has been common in fan communities for a long time. It's funny because like all of the stuff that happened to me, and same thing with a lot of other journalists that has happened to us from the right, a lot of people got already from fan communities. So like when I covered Jake Paul very critically, this terrible influencer, in like 2016. And his fans immediately doxed me, immediately swore, like, made websites about me, whatever. And same thing with people that cover like Marvel movies or whatever, like they cover or video games. I mean, this just goes back to Gamergate. It's like, you don't cover something the right way. This sort of like crowdsourced doxing campaign emerges, and suddenly you're in the throes of it. I think what's different is back in those days, really in the 2010s, it was this crowdsourced effort where it was more ground up from like forums and subreddits and 4chan. And then now it's more top down, where it's like Chaya Raichik, Chris Rufo, these people, like they pick their targets and then the people swarm and go after them.
Wasn't there a thing a few months ago where Chris Rufo like detailed how he does this?
Yeah, he wrote literally all of it in his Wall Street Journal op-ed. He was like, here's what we've been doing. Here's the culture war, and we are weaponizing the media, and you are so fucking stupid and you're falling for it. And they published it.
Wild that he said that and it still worked. Like,
they're open about it. This is what's so crazy. They're open about it, and they're like, you dumb media, keep falling for it. And the media is like, Chris Rufo, you're an interesting figure.
Sorry to go off topic really quick, but what is it, and maybe Taylor, you can like provide some insight into this. What is it about kind of like these legacy media establishments that I want to say like getting spit on and disrespected, but I'll use a kinder phrase, want to interview someone who's quite literally saying, this is the strategy, you're dumb, and then trying to clean up and say like, oh, you don't mean that. Like, you having worked for these bigger legacy companies, can you like, do you have an idea of why that is?
Yeah, well, fundamentally, they ideologically agree with someone like Chris Rufo a lot more than they agree with the average LGBTQ person. I hate to say it, but especially places like the New York Times, right? Like, look who they give credence to and look who they don't. They are full of reactionaries, conservatives, neoliberals, that they both sides a lot of things. They think the left, quote unquote, has gone too far. So they're very primed to sympathize with these figures that are also very privileged, that are also very well financed, that are in the same sort of like broad internet circles as they are. And I just think it's like rotten. I mean, I just think it's like DC brain sort of like beltway rot. And it's, I mean, yeah, they're stupid. I don't know, other than that they like to feed into it. And I think they think it makes them feel like smart or something to be like, hey, let's not write this guy. Everyone's mad at him, but I had a reasonable conversation with him. And, if only trans people could do that. Like, it's just, I don't know.
I think a lot of it goes back to, was it George McGovern, the one that was like running, I believe, for some national office that was like, okay, we have to like cleverly talk about racism now. We can't say we don't want blacks. We have to say like, oh, school choice or whatever. Like I might be getting that name and every detail wrong, but like this has just kind of been a policy for generations in this country now that it's like, we realized at some point we couldn't just be blatantly racist, so we had to code it and bury it. But we've done that for so long that it's actually just come back, and it's like, I mean, we're all racist anyways. Like, for the people that work at the New York Times, it actually would change their lives a lot less if they passed a law that executed every trans person than if a law was passed that raised taxes on the rich. So like
Exactly.
their solidarity lies with the people who are like, well, let's just get rid of this 1%. You're not one of them. Fuck it. Or 1 or 2%.
Bigoted. They're bigoted because they also, you have to remember, these places continually shift to the right. Like, especially now with Trump coming in, they're all like trying to hire more conservative columnists. Like, it's sort of like the problem that the Democratic Party has generally, where they're like, you're saying that we're woke and we're progressive. Actually, we're more Republican than you. We're more conservative than you are, actually. Like, that's kind of how they are. But they've always been bad. I mean, if you go look at the New York Times coverage of just the Iraq War or anything else they've gotten wrong, but just any, like the AIDS crisis, like any sort of like civil rights, civil liberties issue, they're universally on the wrong side of history. So we can't count on the mainstream press to ever hold these powers accountable.
Yeah, it feels like they got rabbit seasoned, duck seasoned into like being like, no, we're conservatives. Like, oh, you hate trans people? Well, we hate them more. Oh, God. Rough. All right. So what advice do you have for other people who have been targets of right-wing harassment campaigns?
Join Delete Me. I'm not saying that because I'm a brand ambassador, but I do genuinely support the service so much. I do have a code for 20% off that I'll be sharing on my Instagram. No joke. But truly, Delete Me is like the one service that will scrape your private info off like data broker websites. You do have to pay for it. Even if you only pay for it for 1 month, it's going to get a lot of that stuff off the web for you. You can just find so much about people. I just think it goes back to having being aware of your digital footprint. Aside from that, it's hard because it really just comes for you no matter what. All the other things that you can do would involve censoring yourself, right? Like, don't be openly gay online. Like, that is not something that I think that we should aspire to. I think we should all protect our privacy as best as possible. And when these things happen, get the police involved. Even though they usually don't give a fuck, you have to document it because that's the only way that sometimes you'll be taken seriously.
Yeah. Actually, I, no joke, like signed up for that same service the other day. And I'm not saying this because I am, I don't know, I spent money on it. I am not a brand ambassador. But,
it's so funny. They reached out to me recently and I was like, and for like not very much, I'm like doing it for almost nothing, but I just believe in it. I was like, oh my God, the one brand deal that like, I was like, you guys don't even know. I pumped this service like everywhere because there was another competitor and the owner of the competitor died. And so it's really just, it's really just Delete Me.
Wow. Yeah, no, I had to do that recently because I had like somebody who I dated years ago that stalked me and was starting to, a lot of it was cyber stalking. It was not as alarming as some things like that might be, but like she found my address. Luckily, like I'm in the middle of moving, so it doesn't matter. But I started getting like weird packages, and it turns out that there are a lot of actually like Etsy shops that are set up for things that are basically harassment campaigns.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
There's also a website that allows you to send poop to someone, like in the mail, just poop. So I got poop in my mailbox in an envelope.
Delivery.
It was in an envelope, like sealed, I opened it and I was like,
put it in a box at least. Come on.
I opened it. It wasn't like it wasn't like a paper envelope. It was like a
I would
one of those like bubble wrap like package envelopes, and I open it up and I'm like, oh, there's poop in there. That's the craziest shit anyone's ever sent me, very literally. Boom. Anyway, moving on. So I recently talked to a friend of mine who's a state level lawmaker in the Midwest who is, a friend of the podcast. And she also had an experience with Libs of TikTok, which was a couple of years back, as the account was gaining steam and it led to a lot of threats of violence and other kinds of harassment. The police, this is sort of actually a follow up to the last question, but the police police basically told her that they didn't really understand what she was talking about in the report that she was trying to make. They didn't understand the media environment to the degree that they didn't even know if the messages that she was showing were from Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, and they ended up being confused and not taking the investigation seriously until the threats were further past that particular person. I won't say where it is, but Midwest state politics. Do you find that this kind of thing is
sound like the police? That's they usually.
Oh, they completely help every time you call.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's usually the case where like they don't they don't take it seriously, but also they don't really understand the media environment?
They don't know what's going on. My mom, my parents have been swatted multiple times, and one time my parents got swatted, and they come in, and there was like 20 people. There was like with guns, and they've got an ambulance outside, all this crazy shit. And my mom's like, "What's going on?" And it was like, oh, and I told my mom, this was one of those, I had given a heads up, and I was like, by the way, I'm really sorry, because I try to tell my parents and family members again, because they're constantly targeted when I have stuff coming out. So I think this was around the time I interviewed Libs of TikTok, maybe like whenever that was, like February. And she showed the police officer, she was like, no, my daughter wrote this story about this woman whatever, on the Washington Post. And I think the police officer was like, she needs to take that down, or see if she can just delete that. She needs to delete all that or something. My mom's like, okay, so this is like a front page Washington Post story. Like that's not how it works. But I will say, so yes, police are totally worthless in so many capacities, but you do want to have that record, because the record, even if you just file a report, the record of that report helps you build a case later. I will say I live in LA, where they actually do take this stuff seriously because there's so many actual celebrities here. So I feel like it's worth it. And the detective in LA that has helped me here has been amazing. And he's like, even if they don't know what you're talking about, have them write it down, because if something happens, or if you need to take this person to court, you have to have that documentation. If you don't have the documentation, they're going to throw it out. So just make sure you file a report every time. But they're not going to find the person. They don't understand how to track a fucking phone number. And it's usually all this stuff happens. Like you said, it's like remote. They're mailing you a gift, or they're sending you, or they're calling on a burner,
Yep.
It does seem kind of short-sighted that we've had this like explosion of interconnected technology for the last couple decades, and really haven't done anything as far as like, how do we make this safe?
Yeah.
I did see, this is completely unrelated, or I mean, it's related, but unrelated for us. I think it's Australia passed a new law that makes it a crime to threaten revenge porn, which I'm like, that's a good crime. That should be a crime. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. You should get in trouble for even pretending you're going to do that. Because I've had so many people tell me that like they're going through a rough thing, and they're like, well, he said he's going to post my nudes. I'm like, you should get in trouble for that. You shouldn't just be allowed to do that. You shouldn't. There should be some way to find out if someone has swatted your parents, and that person should be in trouble for that.
It's a federal crime, but again, you can just call from a burner phone. Like it's a problem. But I agree. No, I mean, yes, I have a stalker who's done some crazy shit, and it's you're just not protected, especially if you're a public figure, which everyone with a social media account is basically a public figure now.
I always say that the price of freedom in this country is that any public place you go into, there's like a not zero chance that somebody else is going to walk in there with a gun and kill you. But I guess there's also the other cost of freedom is, hey, somebody could just like go to a website that changes their phone number and call the SWAT team on your grandma. Like that's what freedom costs.
Yeah. Well, I love it because my parents don't give a fuck at all. They just live in the middle of the country, and they're like, okay, whatever.
Oh God. Well, I'm so glad that
they like dox them so many times, and they're just like boring people that live in the middle of the country and like don't do anything and have like no institutional power or anything. It's like bizarre.
I'm so glad that they're good sports. Yeah, it seems like a lot of like media figures, other famous assholes, like not necessarily media figures, guys like Elon Musk have a kind of TDS. It's a Taylor derangement syndrome. And I've seen
many such cases.
Yeah.
Concerning.
I'll look into it. I've seen Fox News coverage of you, and I remember you posting a video from there where 5 people discuss you're wearing a mask on a plane, as well as Nate Silver recently freaking out over your age. Did the Nate Silver thing start after a specific story?
He got me the delete me campaign though. He got me that delete me campaign.
I love that.
He got me that because they reached out after.
Friend of the show.
I'm like, Nate, you got me some money here, so I can't be too mad. But yes, he was encouraging his fucking psycho followers to dox me because I guess he's like mad that my birth date isn't public online. And that's very intentional again, because I'm constantly harassed. And like, I try to like your birth date, your phone number, your address. These are all like quite identifying pieces of info. Yep. Mind you, I was just pretty recently on like a Fortune 40 under 40 list. Like, it's not hard to necessarily deduce my age. I think everyone knows my work history very publicly begins in 2009. But these people are sort of like so obsessed with it. I think because I don't care. There's something about it where they like, so I said, I'm 50. Okay, Nate, I'm 50, he was like, I won't speak to you until I know your age. I was like, I'm 50 years old. and then like, literally this fucking NPR reporter who's a fucking loser and has written all this crazy shit about me, wrote this whole article that had like a controversy section that said I wear a mask, was texting other journalists in LA. Like, is she really 50? What was she doing?
Oh my God.
in the 2000s, I'm like, yeah, which is very confusing because it's like I also like went to high school and college in the aughts, and like everyone I went to high school and college with is like on Twitter, so it's like, where's the missing decade? Where's the missing 15 years? Whatever. But yeah, Nate's insane. I corrected him about an article, which is what set him off.
I mean,
of course,
fair, though, you are kind of known for controversial journalism. Maybe you were one of those people that went to high school undercover in your 30s, like Drew Barrymore.
Exactly.
Like, here's the thing. There's no way to know.
They just can't say if I'm too young or too old, because Tucker Carlson said I was the youngest person to ever work at the New York Times. Completely untrue. Completely untrue. And they're constantly like, this stupid, silly little TikTok girl. And then at the same age, they're like, she's an old hag. It's like, what if I am 50? What's the problem? What's the problem if I'm 60? Like, what is the problem? He's 50, isn't he? Like, he's
got to be older than that. He's got to be at least like 55.
Curmudgeon.
I don't know.
Tucker has to be.
But they're so triggered about it's the COVID thing has been so interesting because I think it's like, it's a real trigger point for these people in a way that like they clearly have some sort of unrealized like trauma response around. It's like, it makes them just like viscerally angry. And I'm like, I'm immunocompromised. I have no immune system. So it's not, even if COVID went away, I'd still have to wear the mask because I can't even get a fucking flu. Like my body just can't fight it off. So like, again, what's the problem? Like, let me wear a mask. I'm not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
I think there was just so much like initial, like really just bad faith. Like my theory with like the COVID antagonism is it's all just people don't like being told what to do, but nobody wants to admit, I don't like being told rules. So they had to like do this like bad faith, like backwards math to make it about something else. And because they did that so extreme, and because they were being presented with so much controversial information, they had to like double, triple, quadruple down to now they kind of just brainwashed themselves into actually believing the shit that was just an excuse the whole time. It's interesting, and it's sad, and it's also like, man, if the bird flu pops off, we're all doomed. Like,
I literally like,
so fucked.
But you know what's so scary is like leftists also. Like, there's all these leftists on Twitter. Really, is like the only place I've seen them, because I have to say I'm pretty involved in organizing in LA, and like it's not every actual person I think that's like a leftist in the world is not like this, but on Twitter for whatever reason they are like crazy. They're like more libertarian than the libertarians. They're like, fuck masks. Like, you fucking loser bitch. It's like, guys, wait, what? What? Like, how do you have Marxist in your bio? Like,
I know.
What?
I was gonna raise my hand, the AI hand, like a good student. Sophia, you and I have debated about, well, not debated, but like joked about this. Drew, I think you're really right with people not wanting to be told what to do, but also just kind of I think they confuse like no unjust hierarchies and like a government being controlled, like, I don't know words right now, oppressive, with like, I don't know, man, this is a kind of a basic health measure.
The government doesn't want you to wear a mask. Just to be clear, the government is in the process of banning and criminalizing masks all over the country.
Yep.
So you're preaching, sister, but
like, it's so confusing. It's like, you think that the government wants you to mask at that protest? You think that? Are you crazy?
Yeah, no, they want your facial recognition stuff. They want to find you and arrest you.
Near and clear. Like, all, not just at a protest either. They want that shit all over. It's like, it's just so weird. But yeah, the Fox News panel where they were, I think that was Gutfeld, that show, which I sometimes suggest.
God, that man, Greg Gutfeld, amazing. One of the weirdest, most deranged people on TV.
One of the premier comedians of our time. Thank you.
Okay, so I have, speaking of faces, how I have to ask this: how weird was it to have Chaya Raichik wear the shirt of your face? Like, what did you ask her about that at all?
No, I was trying so hard not to laugh. I was trying so hard not to laugh the minute that I saw her, because I was like, first of all, she looks insane. And I obviously didn't acknowledge it because I wanted to see what she was going to do. My favorite thing is, which you don't see because this wasn't, I think this was like right before they start filming. She walks up, she's wearing a t-shirt with my face on it. She's carrying a box of masks. She sits down and she's like, hi. And she goes, do you want some masks? And I said, no, thanks, Chaya. I have a mask on. and I said, and you don't need to feel the need to wear one. I said, I don't always wear one outside, but I do when I'm, close contact with people that I don't necessarily know. They're like, help, she's fucking definitely anti-vax. And so I just said, yeah, no, thank you. And she just, like, the worst right-wing troll ever. She just goes, oh, okay, thanks. And then just puts them like with her bag. I was like, okay, like, and then never wanted the t-shirt once. Like, she was so unprepared for it, because I've encountered obviously these other people like Jacob Wool or some of these like true trolls, and it's like their whole thing is they just want to antagonize you. They get you down and they want to antagonize you to get you to freak out, to get you to say something, to get a clip that they can then outrage farm after. And she just like, I don't think she knew what to do. Like, I think she literally thought that I'm like the type of person that the right wing paints me as, where I'm like some woke, like I'm going to start crying, or like, how could you offer me a surgical mask? Those don't work as well as KN95. But I want that shirt. My friend made versions of it for my other friend's party that I couldn't go to, like my friend's bachelorette party, and they made versions of that shirt and sent me a picture, and I was like dying. I was like, wait, I want an extra run.
You should get a shirt of where it's Chaya Raichik wearing the shirt on your shirt, so it's like a shirt on the shirt.
When I launch my merch line, it's in there.
Please let us know when you do, because I definitely need that shirt.
I just still can't believe she said yes. So she tried to back out immediately. When she agreed to it, which it was so crazy that she agreed to it. And then she sort of like tried to backtrack, and I was like, no.
God.
There's multiple moments through that interview where I'm like, you agreed to this, Libs, TikTok, like, was that weird for you?
5-minute sit down too. She was like, 5 minutes only, no more than 5. That's why I didn't start with any of. I was there obviously for my story. I did this like month-long investigation into like her role in Oklahoma schools, about like the issue, the trans stuff. So all of this was just to get comment for the story. But then I was like, oh, since I have her, I'm going to try to get as much out of her as possible. And there was a bunch of stuff that people had not gotten her on the record on. One was the Great Replacement stuff. She had never been on the record endorsing the Great Replacement stuff. And a lot of political activists thought that if they could get her, which they were correct, if they could get her on the record supporting that, it would keep her from other state appointed positions. That did end up happening so far. So that's good. And then I had asked a bunch of like trans activists and other people before I went, sort of similar to you, like, what should I ask her? Like what? And so I was just started like cycling through questions, and I was thinking, oh, she's going to stop me because she said we only had 5 minutes. And then I'll ask her about the Oklahoma stuff. And she just kept talking for like an hour. She didn't even ask me anything. Like, it was so weird. And so then by the end of it, I was like, all right, I just got everything. She was like, all right, I'm going to get an Uber. I was like, bye. And I was like, let me know next time you want to meet up?
That was the biggest takeaway I had from the interview.
And then she
watching
tried to copy strike then she tried to get my fucking video taken down. She was so mad. She like didn't share it because the video, like we did the interview. I published the article. Like, I'm like, I knew that she was going to try to deceptively edit that video. So I was like, I'm going to publish the full thing because people don't usually see interviews behind the scenes, raw reporting material. So it was actually I had to get approval from the Washington Post just to put that up on my YouTube, just because it is like raw reporting material, which you normally don't share. But since it was newsworthy what she had said. And also I didn't want her to deceptively edit it. And so, yeah, I put it out and then she immediately was trying to get it taken down because she looked so bad.
Yeah.
I guess a follow-up. Go ahead, Drew.
I was just going to say that was my biggest takeaway after I watched that interview. Is I was like, man, like usually whenever people rise to this level of prominence on the far right, like they're good at it. Like I was blown away at how completely like she wasn't ready for a single pitch and you were just kind of throwing them up. Like,
No, I know. I was asking the most straightforward questions. Like my favorite was I was like, so what harm have trans people caused? And she couldn't name a single harm. And I was like, no, seriously, name one material harm. She was like, harm? I can't.
Yeah.
And then she like randomly showed me like porn halfway through. She was so weird.
Go ahead, Avery.
I'm sorry to raise my head.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite parts of that interview is where you're like, you're kind of like saying like, I went to public school, and you're like trying to insinuate like these kids have seen worse, so maybe we should kind of like you're like, it's during the sex ed conversation, for context for people who haven't seen the interview. What was it like just sitting across from her, not like journalists, but like just having to be in the same space as this person? And
She's weirdo. She doesn't have any ideology. I was just like, oh, like, because as you mentioned, there's people, I mean, Candace Owens, like I cover Candace. I wouldn't like she's a skilled, she makes bad faith wrong arguments, but she's a skilled entertainer, and she's a skilled, like same thing with even people like Allie Beth Stuckey. It's like, I don't agree with their ideology, but they have an ideology. Yes. I don't think she has a real ideology. I actually think truly she grew up so sheltered. I don't think she has a concept of the world. Like I think a lot of it is ignorance. When I asked her if she had ever, remember I was like, do you know any gay people? She like kind of doesn't, she seems very ignorant in so many ways. I was like, oh, that was my main takeaway. And she just is a miserable person. I mean, I don't fuck with her at all.
Is she still just doing the Oklahoma school board thing?
So it actually, I will say that interview kept her from a decent amount of things. And I ended up talking to a bunch of people on the right because I had heard that she was trying to get this deal with the Daily Wire or something. I don't know. She was pursuing all this stuff. And I think what that interview did accomplish is make it realize that she's really a behind the scenes, but she has no charisma. She has no presence. She's not a good influencer. She's kind of a troll. And so I think it has that's really thwarted her ability to scale. And also the bomb threat stuff. And the fact that she agreed, there was another person, because she misidentified the Texas shooter as trans. And she basically like said actively that she doesn't care that she posts false info. She like implicated herself in a way that makes her much more vulnerable to like libel lawsuits or whatever, defamation lawsuits. So she's a really big legal risk. And I think that's why Seth Dillon ultimately pulled his funding from her, because he doesn't financially support her anymore.
Yeah. I was watching that. We all watched it as part of like our research for this episode. I watched it when it first came out, but I was like, I need to, rewatch this just to have all of this fresh in my mind. And the way that she doubled down on the great replacement theory, and like, while she didn't directly answer you and say she believed it, she sort of just kind of spelled out that she did afterwards anyway.
She does. Yeah. She does. I don't think so. When I was rewatching it, I was like, I don't know that she understands what this is, but then she directly says that what did she say? Like, not all immigrants are the same or something.
She said not all cultures are the same.
Not all cultures are the same. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't, I don't want to say she doesn't know what she's talking about. She does, but she's just a hateful idiot. Like, that's my vibe on her. And it was so hard to even understand like her idea. She like at one point she's like, gender isn't real, but it is real. But surgeries are not. Like she doesn't have any sort of coherent thought behind any of her hatred.
Yeah. Do you think she's like a true believer in some of that hateful stuff, or is this like kind of a grift for her?
Well, it's definitely a grift, but I do think that she is brainwashed. I do think she believes the shit that she says. I don't think she really understands why. Again, she can't actually talk about the harms that trans people are causing. But yeah, I mean, I just think she grew up sort of in a sort of fundamentalist ecosystem and has been indoctrinated by the right.
Yeah. All right. So we have a few more questions, but they're more fun questions, and we don't have to talk about bad feeling stuff anymore, sort of, for the most part. So my first question of our fun questions at the end is, do you think Hunter Biden would make a good fourth co-host for us?
Oh, yes. Get him in the podcast.
Yes.
He's free now.
He's free. Yeah.
Joe Rogan of the left.
Honestly, like, I'll smoke crack again if I could do it with Hunter Biden.
I've never smoked crack in my life.
Biden gets to pardon some other people.
Yeah. Interesting first choice. Who's next, Joe? Who's next? Anybody, please?
I genuinely hope he pardons more people. I'm not bothered by him pardoning Hunter, but I would be if he pardoned no one else.
I am when he's like been letting innocent people die on death row.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think he's got to pardon other people.
I agree that I agree that it's like a witch hunt against.
My biggest issue with it is that he did it on Sunday night, right, going into Monday morning. Like, dog, it was Thanksgiving weekend. Do it on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
People,
or like
it'll get lost in the
day before. Yeah.
It's not enough to just be like corrupt in one way or another, but like at least be good at it. Like,
yeah. Pardon him and a turkey at the same time,
Yes, I'm pardoning
this turkey
Gobbles.
named Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I'm pardoning Gobbles, I'm pardoning Hunter, and Pumpkin. These three right here. Dress them up like a turkey. Just trot them out there on Thanksgiving morning. Nobody will even notice.
All right. So my next question of this sort is, did I make a mistake by bringing my poodles to someone who willingly calls herself a groomer? Do you think that's why one of my poodles got a hysterectomy?
Interesting. I think this is concerning. And as Elon Musk said, someone needs to look into it.
I agree.
They do need to look into it. Heidi left with.
Some might say there's a whole grooming industry.
I've seen grooming vans driving around. I don't know what's going on.
You know what's sick? They'll come to your house sometimes for enough money.
Real weird.
All right. Another question is, what age are you not?
12.
This question is written from nsilver12 at gmail.com.
I'll tell you what, I'm not under 30, so I've maxed out of the 30 under 30 list. RIP.
Got it.
Sorry, Forbes. Is that Forbes? I don't know anything about the news.
Yes.
So you did a story recently on your Substack about the Grinch getting knee surgery, a kind of viral brain rot meme kids seem to have created. And this reminds me of a meme from about 10 years ago about a grape in a similar situation. Which other Christmas TV or movie characters should get surgery next, and on what? My vote is for Herbie the elf from Rudolph to finally get a BBL.
Oh, I love it. Have you seen that? There was like a tweet where somebody made these like caked up gingerbread men, and they're like little gingerbread men. They have these big butts.
No, I haven't.
I want to give all the gingerbread men BBLs off that.
Amazing. Amazing.
We like groceries.
Yeah, we gotta get the one from Shrek.
Eat the gingerbread booty like groceries. Hell yeah.
I noticed in a comment section that you responded that you are not a cat lady, but you have a frog. I also have a frog. Please tell me about yours.
He died, but I had one for 7 years.
What kind of frog was it?
Yes, it was a little green tree frog.
Was it a white tree frog? Or just a green tree frog?
It was, would you say a white tree frog? That
yeah.
Would have been.
Sometimes they're called dumpy frogs. They kind of sit in a loaf like cats do.
Yes, this is him.
I also have one of those.
Exactly. No way.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've had it for a long
loved
time.
mine.
They can live into their 20s, and so I
Don't tell me that because mine died
That's
at
such a fucked up
7.
thing to say.
did you know it was 7?
I'm sorry about your frog that died. I hear they can live way longer
It
than
was,
that.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's actually very short for their lifespan. I will say it was only 7 since I started counting his birthday the day that I got him, and I did not get him as a tadpole, so I don't know his age. I don't think he was super old. I don't
Wait,
know.
if you get
You'd be surprised.
I'm
I
just
got
now
mine,
realizing-
and he's like, oh, he was older when I got him. If it didn't grow very much, like if it wasn't very tiny when you got it, it
He
probably
didn't grow at all.
Oh yeah, then it was already a fully grown adult. Your frog was probably close to 20 when it died. So
I'm sure he was.
Feel better.
I'm sure he was.
I'm sure he had a long and wonderful life.
I know nothing about frog ownership. Can you go and like whenever you get a cat, you can get a kitten. Can you go get a tadpole?
You can get tadpoles.
Whoa.
I don't think they're the types of frogs that you raise because we bought them we had them in class. We got tadpoles and we raised them and then we released the frogs. I don't think you can raise a tree frog from a tadpole.
Yeah, no.
I don't smoke weed anymore, but I've now said and heard the word tadpole 3 times and it has lost all meaning. I'm like, what tadpole? Is that the word? Anyways. So I just had to vocalize my brain melting in real time. Sophia, do you have any more questions?
No, but I see that someone else wrote another one, another 2. No, another one. And whoever wrote that one can ask it.
What is it?
Oh, so this is mine. For the human food buffalo wings, do you prefer the drum or the flat?
The what? What's the flat?
2 bones or 1 bone?
Oh,
Yeah, 2 bones.
okay. So guys, I'm vegan. I've been vegan like almost my entire life. Not to brag. I'm actually not vegan. Only recently I've started to eat chicken and fish. I had my first wing
Oh my God.
literally, I think 2 weeks ago.
Oh
My God.
You know, and it was unseasoned and it had nothing on it because I wasn't sure if I would like it with sauce.
Can I just tell you that having sauce in your future, good things lie ahead.
Yeah.
How did you like it?
I did need the sauce. It was a little dry. It was good. It was good. But it is weird to eat. There is bones, you know, I'm used to eating like chicken breast where like you don't see the bones,
Yeah.
but it was good. I don't know what kind of wing that was. I think that was the double. I think there was 2 bones in it.
Yeah, so that's a flat.
Yeah, that's a flat.
Okay. So I guess that's my one. Because
Yeah,
the
the
vegan
drum-
chicken wings don't have bones.
They do not. I also was
go.
vegan
Hope
for a
not.
long time. and
I've been vegan my whole life almost. I only
wow.
just became non-vegan because of health stuff, like literally in the past year.
Wow.
Has that been hard? I would imagine like psychologically being like, okay, I guess it's consuming flesh time now.
Yeah, it grosses me out. I can't cook meat. Like I don't want to see it. I still am at that point. It's more like, I used to be really militant about like ethical stuff. And I still am a believer in generally like, I mean, I would never eat like pork or anything. I think those pigs are too smart, but now I've realized that it's much like there's so many vegans that are like, oh, I'm doing it for the environment or ethical reasons, but it's like then they're buying like plastic processed shit that's destroying the fucking ecosystem. So
Yeah,
I think I
drink almond milk for ethical reasons. It's not dumb.
it's like,
I was like, oh.
what? So I think just it's about balance. But no, I'm not. Yeah. You don't have the enzymes to digest meat if you've never had it. So it was making me throw up for a while. So I take digestive enzymes sometimes now when if I'm
My friend Clint was vegetarian like his entire life. Like his parents raised him vegetarian.
Yeah, same.
And whenever he was like 20, like late 20s, we were at a party and he's like, fuck it, I'm eating a burger.
Okay.
And
Oh, wow.
that was a sick man. It was coming out of many, many different holes. It was not, he did not have a fun time at that party, but the burgers were good. It wasn't the burgers.
I'm allergic to eggs and dairy, I think, because I think I'm allergic to eggs and dairy, I think partially because I was not exposed to them for a long time. And because I think I've just had that allergy since I was little, but I made that mistake too. Because I was like, I'm going to try to eat meat. I'll just eat this. Like I actually tried I think a few bites of a burger, and red meat is the worst meat. You cannot just start with red meat. Even now I can't really.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Have you had a hot dog yet?
No, I will refuse to eat those. Oh my God, absolutely not.
Even like a
Absolutely
kosher,
not.
even like
I will not. No.
Shut this podcast off. I will not listen to hot dog
I
slander.
like vegan hot dogs. I like the smart
I know
dogs.
no, smart dogs are really fucking good. Like I completely agree. I will still eat those. I do love regular hot dogs. Like
I
I
still
know
think
it's
of,
disgusting, but like
no, the original Upton Sinclair, the Jungle. I had to do a whole report on it in school. I think about that all the time. And because I was vegan and I was very involved in like the vegan internet, like in my formative years, like I've seen just so many of those like slaughterhouse videos and I can't.
yeah.
You got that like unfiltered raw internet vegan experience.
Yo,
I was like screaming at people on message boards in like 2003 about.
That's what pilled me.
Industry.
Like that's how I became a leftist, was vegan internet. Our producer is asking, vegans of TikTok.
Remember Freely? Did you guys ever remember Freely, the banana?
Yes. Oh,
one of the most iconic vegans. She was more 2010s vegan internet, but
yeah,
she has beef with a lot of people in the fitness community. Like,
oh, I'm sure. I mean, she's crazy.
She is super crazy. And the funniest thing is you can, obviously, if you spend enough time like on fitness YouTube, you can be like, oh, that person is clearly on like trend. But she was like calling you like, oh, this person is like slightly bigger than I think is appropriate. They must be on steroids. Everybody's like, that's clearly a person who is just kind of lifts 2 days a week and probably like jogs on a Saturday morning. I remember looking at her, I'm like, maybe there is like a crazy vegan. And I'm like, this has to be an act.
I got norovirus, unfortunately, over Thanksgiving. I've been very sick. And I still can't keep a ton of food down, but I was making myself banana smoothies and I was having, it's like bananas were the only thing I could eat. And I was thinking of Freely because I had like 7 bananas. That was like her whole, she had like those giant bundles of them that she would eat.
There is no way she's getting enough like nutrients with like.
No, I don't know what she's up to today, but I feel like the spiritual successor to her are the carnivore influencers.
Yes.
Future episodes, we have to do like the crunchy pipeline where it used to be a really left thing. Now it's like escalator to the right, or in conservative, like the past like centrist stuff, but straight into like alt-right territory. Also, best cheesesteak I've ever had in my life, for like top 3, was a vegan cheesesteak.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
I was like surprised in such a way that I was like, this is so good. I contemplated turning vegan, and I'm so Sophia, you've heard the story. I immediately ate a plate of ribs later for dinner. I was like, that's not happening. It was like, yeah.
All right. So that's been the episode.
Me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you want to plug?
Yes, tell people, subscribe to UserMag. You guys subscribe to my Substack, please.
Absolutely.
It's usermag.co, not .com. Usermag.co. It's my Substack. It is about 3 times a week. Email. Oh God, it's an email newsletter that comes about 3 times a week. That's about online culture and tech. So
awesome.
Hell yeah.
Any final words anybody wants to say before we shift to our nonsense?
I'm just honestly, as a chicken wing enthusiast, I just want to say, Taylor, I'm so happy for you to.
I'll let you guys know when I try the sauce.
Yeah, when you try the sauce, I've got This is like, you're going to need some time, but I've got some advanced chicken wing techniques, eating videos I can send to you. Someday down the line, you're going to be eating wings like in a way that's truly disgusting to watch, but it feels good.
Yeah. I will vouch. I've seen these videos.
Yes.
When you eat a flat with one hand, you've made it to the next level. I eat
chicken wings as if I'm a character in Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, the meat goes in and the bones come out.
You've seen me do that, Sophia. Actually, Andrew, maybe for the patrons, we have a wing eating contest. You can eat it in the most obscure way.
We would all win. Yeah.
Okay, we have to do that when you guys come hungry.
I'm going to go eat right now. All right.
Perfect. Thank you again.
So much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.